Can the CUNY directors, coordinators, chairs come up, please? We're going to get started. Yeah, come up. Okay, welcome everyone. This is the 25th anniversary of Women and Gender Studies and the 50th anniversary of Stonewall. Can we get a round of applause? Woo! I'm really excited to have so many different directors, coordinators, and chairs from women, gender, and sexuality studies across the CUNYs here. It should be a very interesting panel to collaborate on supporting and thriving in this climate for women and gender studies. I want to thank Fran Robinson and Joan Oliveri from the Women's Center for their support in Women's History Month and making this happen. I also want to thank the Women's and Gender Studies Club who made these shirts that folks are wearing, and you'll get them at the end along with cake to kind of celebrate all the good things happening on the campus. I also want to thank the Diversity Symposium, the Student Union and Intercultural Center, and the Sanctuary Committee as well as a number of faculty who have really helped pull this event together. I also want to thank Pramila Nadison, the president of the National Women's Studies Association, who sent along some words of support, which I'll play in a bit. And I also want to thank Dr. Donna Davis from the Graduate Center, the director there of Women and Gender Studies, for sending a letter. And I also want to thank Dr. Inez Martinez, who is one of the founding directors of Women and Gender Studies at Kingsborough, for coming. Can we give her a round of applause? Thank you. So Women and Gender Studies here is a concentration. We've been working towards trying to make it a major for a good year now. We're having some issues making that happen with curricular issues, but we have 20 core faculty members and 40 affiliated and allied faculty members. I think the biggest the college has ever known. We have many articulation agreements in the works and a number of articulation agreements at other colleges. If you're a student, you don't know what that means. It just means it gives you ease transferring. So you can actually do Women and Gender Studies from the associate level all the way to the MA level at the Graduate Center, and consider other possibilities for a PhD if you want. Women and Gender Studies on the campus, the only required class is Intro to Women and Gender Studies, and then you have 3 other options: Social Gender, Women in Literature, Bio of Women, a number of options that fulfill other requirements, writing intensive, civic engagement, among other issues. So if you're interested in that, you can check in with me. It's a really good opportunity for you. There also is the Women and Gender Studies Club that you can get involved in. Without further ado, I want to just read a couple of letters of support, and then we're going to move on with our program. So the first letter was passed along by Dr. Susan Farrell, who was the former director of Women and Gender Studies for 15 years here, and she was unable to attend for personal reasons. She's out of town, but she really wanted to be here, and she's here in spirit. She says, "Dear colleagues, although I cannot be with you physically to celebrate this 25th anniversary of the Women and Gender Studies concentration at Kingsborough, please know that my thoughts and best wishes are with you at the college and throughout CUNY. Having been the director of the concentration with Professor Fran Kraljic, one of the founders, for over 15 years. We helped develop courses for the concentration, and we helped get those courses through pathways and make sure our courses articulated with other women and gender studies programs throughout CUNY and other colleges and universities. Close cooperation with Brooklyn College helped to create a strong set of courses, allowing our students the full breadth of interdisciplinary offerings. I'm really thrilled to see the concentration continue and remain an integral part of liberal arts at Kingsborough, starting with the New Visions grant from CUNY Central and with the support of former presidents Leon Goldstein and Regina Peruggi, who, by the way, gave a lunch for the college and Women and Gender Studies faculty and directors at CUNY as one of her first events at Kingsborough. We were the first community college in CUNY and one of the earliest in the US to have a concentration or anything resembling a program or major. This is really something to celebrate and cherish. Thank you all for contributing and supporting this mission, and to the students, you are the future. And the other letter is from Donna Davis, who is the director of the Center for the Study of Women and Society and the MA program in Women and Gender Studies at the Graduate Center. And she writes, I send my greetings from the MA program in Women and Gender Studies at the Graduate Center. It has been 41 years since the inception of the Center for the Study of Women and Society, and just 3 years since the inception of our MA program, so we have much to celebrate. Nevertheless, we also have much work to do. Since I have been in the Academy for nearly 2 decades, I have seen the decline of support for programs like Women and Gender Studies, Black Studies, Latino Studies, and Ethnic Studies. Simultaneously, I've seen people struggle to sustain those programs despite the lack of support. We do this by paying for resources and laboring to advise students while knowing that some form of cutback is pending. So we are to be lauded for our perseverance and our ability to imagine academic futures in which women and gender studies and other programs are understood to be an integral part of higher education. Keeping that in mind, as we look to our future, we seek to recruit students into our WGS program at the Graduate Center by turning to our own CUNY community. How amazing is it to think a person can advance from a community college to one of the 4-year colleges, to the MA program, to the Graduate Center. This is the kind of pipeline I can get behind. One that involves guiding students from one point to another along a path of inquiry that accrues greater meaning at each step. While the Women and Gender Studies MA program at the Graduate Center is only 3 years old, we stand on the shoulders of 25 years of Women and Gender Studies at Kingsborough. We look forward to working together and bringing your students into our WGS family. And then the video that the president of the National Women's Studies Association sent along, I'm going to play, and then I'm going to welcome up Dr. Martinez.
So I just want to say welcome to all of you who are gathered here today at Kingsborough Community College for this cross-CUNY collaboration on the 25th anniversary of the Women and Gender Studies program at Kingsborough and the 50th anniversary of the Stonewall Rebellion. And I especially want to thank Dr. Washburn for inviting me to participate. I'm very happy about the cross-CUNY collaboration, in part because I have a very long history and I have a number of ties to CUNY. I actually began my career at Queens College. I started teaching there in 1998. And I taught at Queens for 15 years. And I was very, very proud to be a part of this working class institution, an institution that serves the people of New York City. And CUNY, I think, in many ways embodies the spirit of community of the public sector. And so I think it's wonderful that we are here today, that you're all here today, as to bring together the CUNY community around the issue, especially in Women and Gender Studies. I am president of the National Women's Studies Association, and I think at this particular moment it's more important than ever that we begin to talk about the ways in which Women and Gender Studies has served the broader interests of women, the broader issue of social justice, and the ways in which we need to craft a new social justice vision. This is a critical moment. Transgender people are under attack as increasingly their civil rights protections are being denied. It is a moment when women's and gender studies programs around the country are being financially strangled. It's a moment when women and people of color are encountering sexual harassment, violence, as well as other kinds of harassment. So I'm very happy that you're all here today. You're coming together. You're beginning to think and to strategize about how we can work together across community, across institution. And I wish you a wonderful and productive gathering.
So the two founding directors at Kingsborough were Fran Kraujic and Inez Martinez. And I just wanted to read something from The Politics of Women's Studies, Testimony from 30 Founding Mothers, edited by Florence Howe, in which Dr. Martinez's own writing appears. And I'm just going to read the beginning and Odyssey. I once dreamed I taught at the ideal college. It was surrounded on 3 sides of water. When I woke up, I realized Kingsborough is surrounded by 3 sides of water. Oddly for me, this exemplar of patriarchal culture has been the place to be. And I'm really honored to have Dr. Martinez here. Can we please give her a warm round of applause? Thank you.
Hello to any attending administrators, to faculty, students, and honored guests. I'm delighted to be here to help celebrate the 25th anniversary of what began as Kingsborough's Women's Studies program. Some 26 years ago, a number of faculty, spearheaded by Patricia Hopkins, and including previous directors Fran Kraujic, Susan Farrell, and myself, acted on our commitment to the idea that what the Academy was calling knowledge was limited by the questions being asked. Those questions arose from the experiences of those that were considered fully human. Women's studies, Black studies, Chicano studies, LGBT studies, and all their offspring have contributed knowledge to humanity based on questions and research and the development of answers to those questions based on the experience of all the people who are not institutionally empowered. In women's studies, for example, one of the main questions we've asked is, what happens to the women when anything? What happens to the women if there's a new policy, if there's a war, a recession, natural disaster, new invention? What happens to the women? Another question we've asked is, what contribution has the consciousness that living out our engendered roles or not has given women? What contribution can that consciousness make, and has it already made, to society's problems? And the third question that we've asked is, what are the differences among women? What effects are there on us of class, religion, nationality, and socializing forces such as ideologies concerning skin color? And questions such as these just keep increasing. It's like an expanding horizon. The mission of our university and of each college in it, to bring to our students our best understanding of the world, to make it available to them, continues to depend on sustaining such research efforts and such educational efforts. The program here at Kingsborough has contributed to expanding the mission of our academy, a mission that, when it's limited to thinking of the questions based on the interests of society's privileged, is provincial. For 25 years, this program here has expanded that mission. I am grateful and honored to have been a participant in it. And I ask all of you here today who are joining in celebrating 25 years of this work to join me in wishing that this educational work of the program may continue with this generation and future generations of Kingsborough students. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Martinez, for that speech and for all of your work in the program. I want to invite Dean Sharon Warren Cook up to give some introductory remarks before we start the panel.
Again, welcome to Kingsborough Community College as we celebrate the 25th anniversary of our Women's and Gender Studies program and the Stonewall 50th celebration across CUNY. Let me give a special thanks to Dr. Washburn for organizing and spearheading this. I definitely know how hard they work because we were emailing until late last night. In just a few minutes, you will hear from a panel of expert scholars, educators, leaders, and advocates. The dialogue this afternoon will illuminate the complex social realities and the social context of gender, sexuality, race, privilege, and oppression. Today is particularly exciting as we have an opportunity to showcase the significant academic fields of inquiry across CUNY during Women's History Month. Let us not move forward in history by continuing to judge a book by its cover. Let us instead honor diversity, restore and claim the lost histories, and allow silenced voices to be heard. Our panelists for this afternoon are Dr. Antonio J. Pastrana from John Jay College, Dr. Jen Gaboury, Hunter College, Dr. Mobina Hashmi, Brooklyn College, Dr. J.V. Fuqua, Queens College, Dr. Laura Westengard, New York City College of Technology, Dr. Jerilyn Fisher, Hostos Community College, Dr. Brianne Waychoff, Borough of Manhattan Community College, Dr. Allia Abdullah-Matta, LaGuardia Community College, Dr. Jacqueline Jones, LaGuardia Community College, and our organizer and our very own, Dr. Red Washburn of Kingsborough Community College. Thank you so much and enjoy.
Thank you, Dean Cook. I appreciate your support, as always. So I just want to read the description for the panel, and then we'll get started in the interest of time. So the Women's, Gender, and Sexuality Studies across the CUNY's panel promotes collaboration and support across the CUNY's for the field of Women and Gender Studies. Directors, coordinators, and chairs from many campuses will attend and discuss their programs and departments and the importance of them in this political climate. So the first question, and feel free to jump in, anyone you want, anytime. Why is women's gender and sexuality studies important and more relevant now in this political climate? The mics come out too if you want to take them out.
Okay, perfect. Hi, good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for inviting us and for making us a part of this important event. So I'd just like to say two things. One, because our program just started at LaGuardia Community College. We're teaching our second Introduction to Women, Gender, Sexuality Studies this semester, and it's challenging. Program director. And I think it's really important because it's such a journey to even have the opportunity to have this subject and this site of inquiry, right, as part of the academy. As a person who did women, gender, sexuality studies work in my PhD program, I recognize how that shifted everything that I looked at and how it's important for our world. I think our students are living through some very difficult times and need to understand the significance of women, gender, sexuality studies in our communities in general. So I think that it's really important because of that. And we know it's really important because, you know, there are efforts to make sure that it doesn't work as well. So I think that speaks for itself. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Brianne Waychoff. I'm at Borough of Manhattan Community College, and this is our 4th semester of having a program. And so we started with one section of Introduction to Gender and Women's Studies in the fall of 2017. Then we went to 3 the following semester, 5, and so now we have 6 sections that are all completely full, which indicates to me a deep desire for this type of education. I also think it's really important that we offer it at the community college. The most marginalized students start at the community college. Arming, or not arming, equipping students and everyone with this type of knowledge allows them to make decisions that will impact their education the entire way. So getting this early, I think, is really important. Personally, I think we should have it in K through 12. But that's not my area. So I just wanted to add that.
Hi, I'm JB Fuqua, and I'm the Director of Women and Gender Studies program at Queens College, which is a 4-year college. And I was so excited to receive the invitation from Dr. Washburn to participate on this panel because it was going to bring together the 2 years and the 4-year CUNYs. Which I think is so necessary to have this conversation so that we can understand the work that's being done, the hard work that's being done across all the CUNYs in relation to women and gender and sexuality studies. Our program at Queens College began in 1991, we are undergoing a lot of changes, very positive ones. For example, just this academic year, the CUNY administrators and whatnot approved the first LGBTQ minor at Queens College, and we're super excited. For years, students were agitating for this to exist as an option for them. And if it hadn't been for the activity of our amazing undergrads, many of whom came through the 2-year CUNY colleges here into Queens, then this minor would not really exist. It was because of their activism and encouragement that it does. I also want to say that in these times, women and gender studies is a necessity. It is not a luxury. It is not a supplement. It is not an add-on. It is a core. When we take that kind of attitude, other things are possible. But we can't do it simply as faculty. We have to have administrative support, period. And it has to go all the way to the top and all the way down the ladder. We have to have it. That is a necessity. Just this week, I heard that several public school systems across the U.S. are now erasing and banning the teaching of LGBTQ history from the curriculum. I'm a native Texan, and I have watched over the decades as different histories of minoritarian subjects, notably African Americans, Native Americans, have been diluted, if not erased, from textbooks, from the curriculum of public schools. For many students, even in New York, the very first time they will ever learn about women's histories, about African American women's histories, about LGBTQ folks' histories, is going to be at LaGuardia Community College, at Hostos, at BMCC. Right? So we owe the students coming in that privilege and that necessity of learning these histories. We currently have the efforts to silence, to erase from the top administrations in this country down to the public schools, erase these histories, and I believe it's vitally important to encourage and to nourish and to allow WGS programs to thrive.
Hi, I'm Laura Westengard from New York City College of Technology, which most people just call City Tech for the sake of brevity. And I agree that women's and gender studies is absolutely necessary. So I represent one of the newer programs at City Tech. We have been around for about 3 years. So we also serve a unique student population that is, we're a comprehensive college. So we offer both 2-year degrees in liberal arts and sciences, and bachelor's degrees, 4-year bachelor's degrees. So gender and sexuality studies at City Tech serves primarily the students who are enrolled in the 2-year degree programs in order to have a focus for their curriculum map through the gen ed requirements. And so we are really supportive of those transfer possibilities for students to move from those 2-year degrees into our 4-year programs or into other programs at other CUNYs. And I would say that what Jake Lee was talking about, it doesn't have to be as explicit. The erasure of women's and gender studies isn't always an explicit fight to silence, but sometimes it's just a hands-off approach or an unwillingness to kind of talk about it or offer resources. And one of the main goals for our program as we created it at City Tech was kind of a harm reduction strategy in the face of that kind of erasure. Our campus is very limited in resources, as are all CUNYs. We don't have a space for like a women's or LGBTQ space for students. We just certified a student club this semester. So there isn't a visible community at City Tech. And what a program does is carves out classroom space in the face of a lack of existing space on the campus more broadly. So classroom space to discuss gender, sexuality, and other issues that students are really eager to talk about. And it also makes teacher support networks more visible. So if we don't have like a visible ally program or safe space program on the campus, we do have instructors who are associated with those classes that students can take. So I see it as a kind of strategy of pragmatism for getting these services to students on the ground and hoping that it will build from there in a way that can sort of skirt around at least that institutional silence and erasure.
Hi, I'm Jen Gaboury. I teach at Hunter College and I get to use the word department. So I teach in a Department of Women and Gender Studies that may undergo a name change at some point. That could be a whole topic discussion here. But so I do courses in my non-core courses that I teach electives in. I teach a course in masculinities. I teach a course called The Abolition of Whiteness on White Supremacy. And I teach a course on bathroom politics and basically around the question of why aren't all bathrooms desegregated. And those 3 courses are all, I tell students, the same course. They're a course that looks at what does it look like at the center of kind of domination, and how do you undo that domination. And so right now, that's obviously really important. So I was teaching the course on abolition of whiteness. I've taught it 5 times. But it was only this last time that I taught it. I've only taught it once during the Trump administration, and I'm not sure if I'm going to get to teach it again. And I'm not sure if I'm going to get to teach it again under the same title. And that's because I was doxxed. The college got a lot of press because of me. That's not good press. Because I was teaching a course with a controversial title on whiteness. And it's not a surprise to anyone sitting here, right, about like why we sort of do the work that we do in terms of the fact, or that we have to be organizing in panels like this one, right, where the very content of what we are teaching is about exclusion. And so when we are teaching about liberation struggle, it is no surprise that you have to have liberation struggle, right, in order to establish your courses, to keep your funding, right? Because it is, in fact, the mark of exclusion is the very thing, right, in critical identity studies that we are studying. At Hunter College, we are blessed not only because of now finally having a department. It only took 42 years of struggle to establish that, but that we have a pluralism and diversity requirement within the college. You have to take a certain number of credits within the college to graduate within race and gender and sexuality courses. And that was established in the 1980s, and it would be near impossible in the age of pathways to get a college, for CUNY Central to allow a college to get that requirement, and we almost lost it. But the reason, so what it means then is that we have 28 sections of Intro to Gender and Sexuality Studies every semester, and I can barely staff them. And what it means, and it's a very different kind of environment to capture people and say, you have to study this. There's hostility, there's frustration, but there's also enormous kind of joy and exploration that happens there, right? That you get to really talk about like racism and homophobia and transphobia in a completely different way when people are just not solely opting into electives, right? When you are having conversations in your college, among your classmates, right? Where it is. And that is precisely, right, what all of this work should be, right? You should encounter this work not only, right, in an elective course, right, on sexuality studies, right, that you should be encountering it every day in the work that any of you do, right, regardless of your, right, major. And I think it's something that people, you know, I think it's something that we know, and that it's unfortunate, right, that we have to do it this way as a function of liberation studies, because it is not mainstreamed, and we cannot count on our colleagues to do this work, I promise you.
Hello, I'm Jerilyn Fisher from Hostos Community College. Very happy to be here today too, and thank Dr. Washburn for the wonderful idea she had, and also the organizing, the tremendous efforts put into bringing us together for this important celebration. And celebration is the way to talk about the work that we do, because as mostly everybody has said so far, we all do this against the grain, we all do this against the tide, with a lot of muscle power, you know, to keep things in place, let alone grow. So at our college in the South Bronx, we have had a program of study that started simply with the Introduction to Women's and Gender Studies. Then it was called Introduction to Women's Studies 2002. And our program of study has grown slowly. We have now 6 courses instead of just the one that we began with. But it's been a hard period of growth because many of the faculty, and I'm speaking from a community college standpoint, where faculty teach more hours than they do at senior colleges, and they're put upon in different ways. You know, I can't measure this quantitatively, but we're put upon in different ways to do committee work and the like. And because of that, there are many faculty at our college who have an interest in women's and gender studies, but they are simply not given time by their departments or units to teach the courses. So I have to say, and I say this, you know, with some degree of embarrassment, that I teach most of the courses in our program. And it's not because I want it that way. It's simply because I'm given a very small amount of release time to run a program, and I am given the autonomy because I began the program, I initiated it. I'm given the autonomy to choose the courses that I want to teach. It has to do with the department being housed in the English department where my appointment lies. But it's a really problematic situation, and I'm sure it affects other campuses as well. What I want to say on a more positive note is that in the courses that we all teach, there are so many life skills and intellectual skills that students gain in a way that they can possibly gain, and I hope they do, from other courses that they take. But in women's and gender studies courses, I feel that students gain these skills such as, very, simple generic skills that we all know about, such as critical thinking, where they can perhaps for the first time in their lives begin to recognize, analyze, and fully understand the impact of the dominant white narrative in our country that excludes so many people from it and makes them and the narrative itself invisible. Leadership skills, when students begin to feel in courses, women's and gender studies courses, that are taught with feminist pedagogy in mind. I know not every course is, but when courses are taught from the perspective of students being at the center of learning and very much in an environment in which power is shared, students learn leadership skills. They learn to grasp the power of their own voices and experiences. Students feel validated because their experiences come into their intellectual learning, and they're even given credit, that is academic credit, in the form of assignments that we give where students can bring their experiences to bear. These are things that we can't take for granted in other classes necessarily. I'm sure it happens at times, I know it does, but in women's and gender studies classes, from my point of view, these things and many others all come together in an overwhelmingly positive experience for students that endures. It stays with them in the other courses that they take when they pursue research in women's and gender studies that they hadn't even thought of before, and it also makes them more demanding learners. It makes them more critical learners and learners that will question authority in ways they might never have before. So why is women's and gender studies important? Honestly, I could draw a blank if I hadn't prepared a little bit for this, because the number of ways that it's important, I think, are just, so completely uncountable. And I know that many of you who have taken courses here at Kingsborough and those who teach them know exactly what I mean.
I just want to say one other point, and then maybe we can look at some of the other questions, especially from folks who haven't spoken up yet, so everyone's voice is included. This morning there was a wonderful student panel. There's supposed to be 10 speakers, but there was 9. And one of the students who didn't come because he's been fighting to make sure women and gender studies is funded on the campus, and right now has a hold on his record because of that. So there's 9 of them here, and it was really a wonderful experience to hear them speak. Very diverse body of students, mainly students of color, mostly queer, some trans students, some cisgender students, all working class, all talking about the importance of being at a community college, studying diversity, focusing on women and gender studies, and having a space on campus where they feel safe as LGBTQIA, go down the alphabet, students. And it was just so inspiring for me to hear them speak. And I shared with them when I was a community college student, there was no women's studies program where I went. It wasn't until I went on later at SUNY New Paltz, and I got very involved with women and gender studies at SUNY New Paltz. At the time, they were being defunded, and students and faculty fought as well on this campus to continue to make this field not just an intellectually rigorous field where people can take classes, but also to accept that access means resources. There is no access if we do not have resources. Enrollment is down at this college. We have the highest graduation rate. We are the oldest program in CUNY with women and gender studies. We've been supported by every administration, and I think that's the reason why, for instance, we have students right now who did their AA here, who did their BA, and who are doing their MA at the Graduate Center. And that can't exist without access to directors getting reassigned time to mentor students, to make new classes, to work on transfer options at other places, to hold faculty meetings, to stay fresh in the field. And I shared with them that it was very, very important for me as a student to have access to these resources when I was at SUNY New Paltz. And that's the entire reason why I did my PhD in Women and Gender Studies, because I had those resources. And I want a program where students have scholarships and they have mentorships and faculty are given funding to do research. And I want to celebrate the 25th year, and that's why I'm here, and that's why everyone is together, and there's a lot going on with Stonewall 50. And I'm really grateful we have so much support with students and faculty. But we also need to be treated respectfully, intellectually on this campus in the same way that other CUNY campuses are. BMCC has a major. I've been working on a major for 1.5 years. Hats off to you folks. And I think that would be wonderful for students to have a major. I think it'd be wonderful for us to have an office where we can continue these conversations when people are talking about, as Dr. Naddison mentioned, women getting raped, trans people getting, killed, black people being harassed by cops. Like, we need to be able to have those conversations intellectually. The support services on campus are wonderful, but they're not academic programs. We need to have the knowledge base to challenge the violence that's happening in the world. That's not to say that these issues are not important in terms of resources. We also have more students than ever interested in this concentration. We have a number of administrative issues, and I thank Dean Cook for helping me here to make this easier for students to find, but we have so many students in our Women and Gender Studies classes, and we need to figure out ways to support students. And I just want students who are working class, students of color, queer folks, women to have the same resources if they're studying political work about their own lives. And that this is a field, it's a political intervention into rethinking and repositioning history and other fields that have excluded marginalized people. So I want to just dip into the next question and encourage you folks. I'm happy to share information about the student panel earlier, to hear what students are saying on their own campus about what they want and what they deserve. It's not just faculty. And I think that's a really important part of a campus, is what students and faculty want and deserve. So the next question, and I would love to hear from folks who haven't spoken yet, is why is it important to support and fund women and gender studies from the AA to the PhD level in CUNY? And think about this in terms of the conversations happening with pathways, not in terms of homogenizing knowledge, but what it means to actually say CUNY as an institution with all its prestige should support and fund WGS from every level. So we have access to the same resources so students can thrive. And Dr. Fisher mentioned this. How do we support that in a way where we can actually survive and thrive as a legitimate program?
Hi everyone, I'm Mobina Hashmi from Brooklyn College. First of all, thank you so much, Dr. Washburn, for inviting us and for bringing us together, and thank you all for being here. I'm relatively new as a coordinator of the program at Brooklyn College. We're lucky we are in our 45th year. We're a program, interdisciplinary, and we have a major, a minor in minor in women's and gender studies. And this year we're celebrating the 10th anniversary of our minor in LGBTQ studies. So as everyone has said, we exist and we continue to exist because faculty, staff, students put so much effort into it that is not institutionally recognized. And because we get something out of it, but as I always say, teaching may be something you're drawn to, but it's also a job. And it deserves to be recognized for sort of the labor that it is. I'm also a member of our union. The New York State budget is $175 billion. What CUNY is asking for equitable funding is, as one legislator said, a rounding error in that budget. So when we don't get those resources, it's not because they're not there, right? We all know that. It's because it is a signal that we don't count. You know how CUNY loves to show its diversity. We're in the advertising, we're in the brochures, we are everywhere except in the budget. right? So one of the things that we one of the things that is important to recognize, I think, for women's studies and for women's and gender studies, is that the knowledge that is generated here, the lives that we live, are legitimate forms of knowledge and experience. When we are in the academy, we are told to cite the people who know. We're told to cite the experts. And in that, we are molded into the kind of people who then don't support women and gender studies programs, right? One of the major interventions that these fields do is to say, you actually know things. Right? And that knowledge is legitimate, that knowledge is valid, and that is the knowledge on which we can change things, right? The last thing I want to say on that point is that at Brooklyn College and throughout, sort of, when I hear, we have amazing speakers come through and they talk about things. The more I hear them, the more I realize that all of these activists that we hear about, there's somebody recently talking about, Barbara Ransby actually, not just somebody, talking about the history of Black Lives Matter, talking about the Black Panthers, right? You all know the Black Panthers, the Young Lords movement. When we think about the women's liberation movement, those people were your age, right? They were your age and they did those things. When we learn about them in school now, we learn about them as an entity that is removed from you. And one of the functions of this kind of knowledge is to restore that connection. And that's something that is wonderful to do. And it's wonderful to be part of. I grew up in Pakistan, and I grew up believing that Pakistan was created because the Muslims of South Asia desperately wanted their homeland. And it was sort of this, singular narrative. It wasn't until I grew up and sort of started looking into it, myself, where I realized it was political. It was a bunch of, landowners and politicians who made decisions. Let's not forget the British. But I mentioned that to say that the history of this country, the history of this city, the history of CUNY is not the narrative that is easily accessible. It is the narrative that you experience, that you know, that you live. And that is the narrative that we need to make the dominant narrative. Thank you.
Hi everyone. Thank you, Dr. Washburn, for inviting us. It's thrilling to be here in this anniversary moment, in this commemorative moment of celebration. So I'll try to stay happy. My name is Jay Pastrana. I am the Director of Gender Studies at John Jay College of Criminal Justice. This is my second year. We have a program that runs a major and a minor. So we have about 39 majors and 45 minors. It's great. And I also want to just do something that I train my gender studies students to do, is to also say the names of the people that you acknowledge and that helped you to be wherever you are, right? And so stay with me for a second, because I have a list of names of folks at John Jay who helped me to come here. These are people who helped to build the program. Right now, the program has been around for 10 years. But of course, anybody who has run a program knows that before those 10 years, that's when the real hard work happened, right? And so, so just bear with me for a second. Erin Ackerman, Jama Adams, Andrea Bayless, Rosemary Barbaret, Ellen Belcher, Jane Bowers, Gloria Brown Marshall, Erica Burley, Rod Colvin, Blanche Cook, Jo Ellen Lucia, Marcia Esparza, Gail Garfield, Katie Gentili, Betsy Gitter, Jessica Greenfield, Joan Hoffman, Allison Cavey, Kathy Kaloran, Kimora, Q Lee, Tony Lamel, Tara Paulini, Allison Pease, Matt Perry, Jessica Robles Morales, Ellen Sexton, Brett Stout, Lisa Eukins, Olivera Jokic, Crystal Jackson, Carmen Canard, Dora Santana. I just wanted to share those names. I'm grateful for their work. I'm here because of them. And obviously there are many more that I have not named. But the motto at John Jay is educating for justice. And so what we try to do is educate for gender justice, right? So the program at John Jay is basically a program that helps students to develop their activist voice, right? And so that's important, and it dovetails with the question, because we're trying to advance critical thinking rooted in perspectives that come from experiences of isolation, discrimination, or disempowerment. And we do that not because we're downers. We do that so that we can learn how to identify when these things happen and how to respond to them. So in addition to those downer things, we make sure that we also talk about in the classroom such things as joy and love and celebration. So I just want to leave you with that, but I want to thank everybody on the panel, and also, again, Dr. Washburn for inviting us.
Hello everyone, I'm Dr. Jacqueline Jones from LaGuardia Community College. Our Women, Gender, and Sexuality Studies program, as Dr. Matta already mentioned, is in our first year, so we're in our second semester. And the way our program works is we are an option for students who are majoring in liberal arts. So it is essentially a major, although it's not called a major. They're not really doing like some small cluster of work that would be a minor. It really is their core study after doing gen ed requirements. So I think for us, because we're in our first year and we're building, when I think about this question about the pipeline from community college to PhD and WGS, for us, where we situate is trying to get students to understand that the knowledge base that they're going to get in WGS is for them. So many of our students are interested in the things that we want to talk about, but think they can't stop and intervene and take these classes or have these discussions because they're focused on what career they're going to have, what job they have to have, taking care of their children. And of course, we're not negating any of that. Those things are important and essential. But we want them to know that the things that we're talking about in our classes are essential to all those things that they are doing. And it's not tangential, but it is essential to that. And so last week, we had our first open house, and we had over 80 students there. It was excellent. So currently we only have one student who was in the option, but we introduced 80 new students to what we're doing. And I know for many of those students who are in their first semester and came as part of their first year semester class, didn't know what to expect when they walked into that room, but we had videos and games and all these different activities just to say to students and disarm them to think like, no, this isn't the room where you're going to see a bunch of man-hating feminists screaming at you about, what's wrong in the world, but this is a place for you to understand that this knowledge base is important for everyone, regardless of how you identify or what or your identities.
So I will say one thing she forced me, right? About, so teaching the intro class has been really interesting for me because the first semester we had a few students who thought, oh, I'm gonna try this. A few students who probably just registered for it because it was a liberal arts class. And so what I was able to see though is this way that when you begin this journey and talk about these things and have people locate themselves in the discourse, it shifts their perspective. And so I was able to see that. It was really difficult to get a couple of students to just be more open. This semester, though the class is really small, I have some really solid students who are having this discussion open to the information, and also really situating their own voices. So I think that we're making moves, so hopefully we'll continue to grow.
Just to echo what the two of you were mentioning about integrating this kind of critical thinking skills, this framework into not just students' lives, but also their other coursework. That's something that we come up against at City Tech. Since we're a college of technology, all of our degrees have to be applied or moving towards professional, the professional sphere. So the students come into my particular campus so exclusively career focused that it often is a surprise that they could in fact think through these questions in the classroom. And so it's really essential that people recognize that we are offering an opportunity to reframe the way that students think about their world, their personal world, their professional world, their educational world, and you know, that's a way to kind of help them understand the centrality of the topics that we cover in the classroom. And, you know, to speak from the position of the skills for the professions, these classes do offer those kinds of soft skills that employers look for: leadership, as you mentioned, effective communication, contextualization, the ability to kind of like look at your situation within the larger context, global thinking. All of these things are really valuable skills in the workplace as well. So that's another thing that we offer for students who can't quite see the way that these topics integrate into their lives.
Related to the question of the pipeline at CUNY from the AA degree to the MA and perhaps beyond, what strikes me first of all is how important it is to repeat what we learn when what we're learning is very difficult for us emotionally and intellectually. That you can't, even if students do well in an Introduction to Women's and Gender Studies class, what they're learning there is still fragile, it's still tentative. They don't get, from my experience, they've been teaching at different levels in our associate's degree, even when they've gone to the highest level of our program, they don't have a very solid grasp on the many, many ways that they can apply and extend what they've learned and deepen their own self-reflections through it. It's all very, very of the moment, because they're juggling busy lives, they're learning, you know, as they're working, as they're caring for family members who are ill, as they're taking care of children and shuttling them back and forth. And the idea that that kind of learning can really take its deepest hold with several courses at the community college is just not realistic. You know, it's great when students can engage in it and become interested and, you know, hopefully go on. But the truth is that unless the path for them to go forward at the BA level and then at the MA level is made easier and attractive through scholarships, as Dr. Washburn was talking about, I think that we do our whole community in New York City a real disservice, because it's the voices of the students who take our courses at CUNY and who become leaders and become people who are confident in what they know and have to say, that the future is going to be better.
I'd just like to add that we're a program and we have a major and a minor in Women and Gender Studies, as well as the new minor that I mentioned earlier in LGBTQ. However, we have 4 core courses that majors and minors have to take, and 2 of the courses are one is an independent research project that the individual students pursue with a faculty member of their choice. And we recommend that it's a full-time faculty member because our adjunct instructors are so overburdened that it's not possible for them to take on those students. However, the second course is called Fieldwork Internship. And this is the course in which students go out to the community and intern for 90 hours over the course of a semester at an organization. Anywhere from the Leslie Lohman Museum to GMHC to the amazing film company Women Make Movies, or any Planned Parenthood, any number of organizations, the thousands of them that exist in the New York City metropolitan area. But it's also a chance for them to work with a supervisor and to put into practice some of the ideas and concepts that they've been exploring in their other classwork. And we're fortunate that that's one of the core required courses for all of them.
That sort of goes into the next question. Go ahead.
Okay, so this sort of will veer into the next question, but at BMCC we do have a major, which is great, and it took a few years to get that going, so hold on, Red, maybe it can still happen. But the other thing I want to note is that I don't have a budget, there's no administrative assistant, and I do not get reassigned time at all. So, the reason I bring that up is because I think it's important to talk across the CUNYs about what resources we have and what access. So well, I think Red has some amazing resources, right? But I have other resources, and the people at LaGuardia and City Tech too, Hostos, right? It all looks different at all of them, and I think when we don't communicate with one another, because we are all so overworked, it's harder for us to create a coalition where we can work together to create robust programs that will create this pipeline, because I do think that's a way to show that funding and resources are important, particularly in this neoliberal climate where we're all sort of siloed and encouraged to fight for ourselves. And I think a key component of feminist pedagogy is combating that and working from a collaborative approach. I think that this, thank you, Dr. Washburn, I keep calling you by your first name, sorry, is a great start, having disciplinary councils like we were talking about, and joint programs like this, more of these, and creating an archive. When I went to write the curriculum for our major, there was very little to draw upon. So I wrote National Women's Studies and got whatever anyone was willing to send me, but this way we can start to create our own CUNY archive and help one another build the programs for you all.
I'm going to talk a little bit more. So Brianne and I were riding to the event in the same car. And so we were talking, and one of the things we talked about was, and I guess this sort of goes into number 3 as well, about reassigned time and teaching loads. And Brianne said she didn't have reassigned time, being the coordinator, the program coordinator, and I said I did, and so we started talking about standardization or consistency across the programs as a way to kind of ensure the viability of our different programs and departments and such. And I think this is a great first start, is to say, well, what do you do? What do you do? What do you do? What do you do? Well, way over here, we do it this way. And not that I'm the queen of standardization, or by any means, but I do think there's something about consistency and fairness. And when you mentioned the labor issue, hello, PSC CUNY, what is happening in terms of our labor, and that affects what we're able to do for you all, right? For our students, who are the most important thing, as far as I'm concerned, and I imagine all of us up here would say the same. So to be able to have these conversations and say, well, what are you allowed to do? Like, where's your energy? What is CUNY doing to facilitate this, to allow our programs to thrive, right? And our students to thrive. So.
So at LaGuardia, we don't have reassigned time for program directors until you have a certain number of students. So that's really difficult because we were starting a program from scratch, and it took us about, 4 years to get it going. And so we were doing all that work without reassigned time. We're doing that work now, trying to build the program, because you spend all that time and then you're like, yay, we got it, but then you have to get students. Now you have to keep it. Now you have to get enough students to enroll. And as someone else mentioned, at our college too, enrollment is down, so that is always a concern. But I will say in terms of resources, Dr. Matta and I are not the only people who are working on this. We have a committee of faculty across 4 different departments in liberal arts who are committed to working on this, but still, you take 2 or 3 people from each of those departments, and yeah, there's about 8 of us, but that's not enough, especially when you don't have reassigned time, and so you have all the other service obligations that you have to do, and many of the faculty who are involved are pre-tenure, and so it's a lot to do that, so that's our situation.
We do have some service time, release time in our for our department, but like not enough for what we need to do. But connected to that is another aspect of this work that is for people not only who are administrating, but just generally kind of working in some of these fields around critical identity studies and what comes with teaching them. So I was in a conversation. I was in what started out. What devolved into a conversation on Facebook Messenger between myself and somebody else who is a community leader, and I thought for a second whether or not I was going to help this person, but I'm not going to. And they do represent other people in their capacity as a community leader. And this conversation was happening because this person told me that they did not believe the Michael Jackson accusers. So I was talking to them about this. And among the things that I knew about this person is that they went to the College of Staten Island. And I started thinking, I wonder what your coursework was like. Or I wonder what your coursework was not like. And what courses did you have? And I want to know who you studied with or didn't. And when I was thinking about that, I mean, so I teach a course in masculinities, right? And among the things, I had to learn a bunch of things when I started teaching the course. I've done it for a long time. One of the things I had to learn is that when I teach material on sexual assault of men, which is a 4-week unit, that I have to place it before the drop date. Because you penalize too many people who cannot, for traumatic reasons, complete the course. And it created too many problems. And I mean, it now seems obvious. But you learn. That's the kinds of things that you learn. One of the things I know about teaching about men and sexual assault, and I know that I'm not alone on the stage, right, is that what we saw in the sort of Michael Jackson accuser case is that most men don't tell anyone, right? Most men who are molested as boys in particular don't grow up, never to, the majority of men, right, have never told anyone, including the person who ends up being their their different intimate partners in their family. When that is the most common, right? That is the most common narrative. And I was thinking about that, about and sort of what we know. I was also thinking about that around the context of I also think about that a lot around the context of faculty leave time. I've had because I teach a masculinities course, I've had at least 5 men who I've never taught before in the classroom come and talk to me about their sexual assault in my office hours. And I know in at least 3 of the cases, I am the only person, as far as I know now, still today, that they told, right? And I tried to get them to tell other people and all those kinds of things. But that's part of the labor, right? And I understand that all of us, right, understand that is part of the labor of doing this work, right? Doing any of these kinds of work, right? Doing work on racial violence, doing work, and that's part of this labor. It's very hard sometimes to talk to my dean about what that service looks like, or what it would mean to sort of talk about trauma circulating in communities, right? Including among sort of people trying to I'm not trained to respond to that, right? It's maybe want to go get training, right, to respond to that. And what does that mean, right? But it's not, and I also don't think it's an inappropriate part, right, of scholarly exchange. And certainly is very deeply feminist, right? But like what that sort of means and how we sort of like hold that and sort of care for that and absorb that, all of us, right? All of us within communities.
Okay, so I'm just going to say something quick, and then I'll pass it over to Dr. Fisher, and then we have to do questions and answers. And I have a number of students here who want to share their experiences too, so I want to make sure we have time, because I realize it's kind of late, but I would encourage folks, to check in with folks up here separately if you want, or continue the conversation. That's kind of my goal. I just want to say that so Kingsborough has been supported administratively for most of its intellectual life, okay? So it pains me to hear what you folks are experiencing, and I want to build some kind of solidarity where everyone has access to the same resources, and that we're helping each other with, to help students from every level of education within CUNY. That's very important. But I also just want to say, our resources were cut at a time when women and gender studies has taken off on this campus, okay? Biggest faculty support, biggest enrollment in terms of classes. Like I said, we have a number of administrative issues we're working through. A point where we were doing massive events, grant writing. Many of us are doing work, including folks here at NWSA, working on writing proposals together. It was a really wonderful intellectual moment, and then it was just squashed. So I'm just going to say that I think this is a rollback in terms of what's happening across the nation with political knowledge projects, because they challenge the very structure of our society that challenges power and inequality. So I'm just going to say that. I do think that we need to, as faculty and as directors, to have conversations about how to take intellectual risks, how to show up for each other, how to defend things within CUNY. I waited till after tenure to come out as trans. I waited till after tenure to do a lot of really intellectually risky work. I'm still committed to that. I really think it's important for students and faculty, but I think that we need to up our game, because this is happening in a moment where people's lives depend on this. I have students who need this work, and all of us do. And that panel this morning was so inspiring to me, and I want them to have access to the things I had. This program was started when I was just graduating high school, right? I wanted to have the same things, if not better, for the students attending now. We have students who are going to speak later who are at Columbia and Vassar and the Grad Center and City College and the CUNY BA all over the place, who would not be where they are if they didn't have mentorship, if they didn't have funding, if they didn't work with the program. And we need to have that. We also need faculty to be involved in curricular decisions and be treated intellectually in a respectful way as a program, okay? Not for things to go to a traditional department and leave out 90% of the faculty, or leave out me as director. It's insulting, and I think it just reinscribes a lot of institutional discrimination by not taking your graduate work and your scholarship seriously. I also think it's important for us to document our events and also to continue the conversation, not just at professional organizations, and for us to show up at, so many of you at the union rally, to show up for different issues happening that are connected. I would encourage students to do this too. I have some students who I pass along, Josette's going to speak, to write about their experiences going from the AA to the MA. And I just wrote a piece too in kind of Dr. Martinez's tradition called Endangered Species, Women and Gender and Sexuality Studies at Community Colleges in Me Too Times, a case study in Kingsborough. So you have to publish your own work. It'll be in a book called Theory and Praxis, Women and Gender Studies at Community Colleges. I intend to keep writing about this, and I hope all of us will. Maybe we can do a collaborative writing project. I know there's a new chancellor, and I'm happy to continue these conversations because I think we owe it to ourselves and also to our students.
I'll be very quick because what Dr. Washburn said covers so much, but I did have a couple of ideas about how women's and gender studies at CUNY could be better connected across the degree programs so that it can thrive and have a more vivid presence for all students. They're not brilliant ideas, but they're just, some of them are doable, some of them probably aren't. But, you know, one thing is that if we had some kind of centralized website for women's and gender studies across the CUNYs where, you know, like a commons, where people could post their syllabi, they could post questions they have. I'm talking about the practitioners, those of us who teach, and of course students as well. It's not a super complicated thing to do, but so much of what we're saying is that we need information from each other about what we do, how we do it, what we're struggling with, what we're succeeding with, and it really would be possible to bring that together in a website. I would even, as a secondary point, I wish, this is my wish list, that there would be somebody appointed by CUNY to coordinate the community colleges and the senior colleges in women's and gender studies, so that there were things like Dr. Washburn was mentioning, mentors, that there could be mentors at the senior colleges, really accessible for those students at the community college level who could connect with them either online or in person somehow. Even our vast differences can be mitigated, you know, by other kinds of digital communication. But if there could be somebody coordinating that kind of effort, and maybe even having a conference, not talking about one that would be heavily invested in research, so much as a conference of practitioners like they have with developmental writing, for any of us who are in English as well. The area of developmental writing has a conference where people talk about the work they're doing in their classes, not so much where they publish in their, you know, very exciting, complex ideas, but what's going on in the classroom, how are students responding, what else can we do, what needs do we see. You know, it would be possible to have a yearly conference where that could take place as well. And then I always wish at CUNY, I know on our campus it's not possible really for funding reasons, that there could be more collaborative teaching, the possibility that people from different disciplines and certainly across the CUNYs could do collaborative teaching so that we could bring the presence of our programs at the different levels right directly to the students in a very exciting way. Thanks for letting me have that time.
Okay, so I just want to invite folks up if you have a question for anyone on the panel, or if you have anything else that came up in the course of this conversation. Don't be shy. As I tell my students, your voice matters here. It might not matter in the world. I hope it does. But this is the opportunity if you have a question. Okay, so I have a couple questions. I laid on my first. Oh, sorry. Come on up, Elizabeth. My apologies. No problem.
Hi, nice to meet you guys. It was lovely to hear you guys talking. My name is Elizabeth. I guess my question is, you guys are all talking about women and gender studies, and it is definitely a subject that I am interested in, but I'm also going into, say, like community health. Do you guys work with, as women and gender programs or departments, do you work with other majors and courses to see how they can incorporate with each other, and how does that play about?
At City Tech, the way that we've structured our program is exclusively within and across disciplines. So we call it an interdisciplinary cluster of courses that are actually courses that are housed in the various departments, including health and human services and those kinds of majors. So students can take the classes that kind of double duty. They both work towards their major and in the discipline that's very specific to them, but also are inflected with questions around gender and sexuality studies. So, you know, one of the benefits of the nascent stage that we're at is that, you know, we don't have a separate department. That means that our classes are all kind of housed within existing other departments. And so that does kind of help cross-pollinate and give students access.
It's the same at the MCC, and also getting to know the faculty that teach in those programs who are interested, and directing students to those faculty to take the classes, even if it's not specifically a gender and women's studies
elective, if that professor is teaching and recommending that, yeah.
Yeah, the same at Queens College. We have the 4 core courses that are WGS designated, and then we are an interdisciplinary program, so we have students take 5 at least electives across the campus. For example, we have different courses in family and nutritional science for students who are interested in public health and various other things, psychology, the Division of Education. We have courses there. We have biology, other biology courses. We have a variety of things. Urban studies, sociology, sociology of the family, varieties of classes. So yes, that is an opportunity.
And my recruiting pitch for Brooklyn College. We had a course I just had a course in LGBTQ health, and we have a regular course on women's health and women in the medical system. So as everyone is saying, it's inherent in women and gender studies is that it is interdisciplinary, and for the plus side of sort of the lack of resources is that we are all interdisciplinary, is that we rely on the kindness of friends to offer the courses that we need. So, but come to Brooklyn.
Your question makes me, which is if we had release time or some support, women's and gender studies faculty could go into classes like community health classes and actually give a presentation relevant to the content of, to show the relationship between women's and gender studies and community health, which may not always be evident, and then be there as a resource for students who want to make better connection between the two.
Great question.
Because I like visual things, and for folks who are not visual, I'm pulling out keys. Okay? These 2 keys were the keys to the Women and Gender Studies office that Dr. Martinez carved a space for, Dr. Kraljic, and I want to, commend them for all of their efforts. But I see that as symbolically saying, you do not matter on this campus. You do not have a space to talk about these ideas. So I want to do a poll. How many students here are interested in studying women and gender studies? Okay. How many students would like to continue to take those classes at another campus? How many students would like to do an internship or work in something connected to gender studies, critical race studies, ethnic studies, LGBTQ studies? Okay. How many students would like a space on campus to have an intellectual conversation outside of a classroom about things happening in the world? Okay. So, as you can see in the earlier panel, there are a number of students, a number of faculty, directors, coordinators, chairs, who really are advocating for this. We ran out of chairs here, okay? I tried to encourage people who are able-bodied to help lift chairs, but we have a lot of support. And I'm really grateful that you folks were able to come, and I encourage you all to stick around if you have questions and find out more about women and gender studies and how to access this really important field at this political time. At this point, I want to invite up a couple students to speak about their experiences, and I'm super excited that they're here, and many of them I haven't seen in a while, and it makes me really happy and warms my heart that they're here. I have 2 who couldn't make it, who relocated. They're very short statements I'm going to read. One is from Khalil Mason Alfonso, who is very instrumental in the gender-neutral bathrooms on campus. And he said, in my absence, you can tell folks at the event that I thank them for being themselves no matter what. Continue to fight for what you believe in, because no one else can do it for you. And that it'll only get better once we take the first step in making it happen. Now go out there and make it count. Another student is Isabel Rivera, who used to be the editor of the campus newspaper and covered a lot of events on campus. And she wrote, I'd like to thank everyone from Women and Gender Studies, especially Red Washburn, for all the information, the roundtables, and WGS inspired me to fight for what I believe in and stand up against unfairness and inequality. WGS is an important aspect of Kingsborough, and I'd be sad to see it lose its value due to college politics and disagreements. And then I have a number of students who are here in person, and I'm very, very excited to have them here. The first is Josette Belmont, who is a student at the Graduate Center studying Women and Gender Studies at the MA level.
Hi, everybody. I wrote a speech, but I'm just going to speak off the cuff in the interest of time. So my name is Josette. I'm an alumni of Kingsborough. I graduated in 2016 with an AA in liberal arts and concentration in women's and gender studies. I was the president of the Women's and Gender Studies Club, and I had the pleasure of taking classes with professors such as Professor Washburn, Professor Better, Professor Vai, and so forth. After Kingsborough, I went to Brooklyn College and got a dual BA in psychology and women's and gender studies, and I'm now at the Graduate Center studying women's and gender studies at the master's level. So what I would say in regards to this program is that I didn't think I was going to go to college. I couldn't get into colleges, and so when I was placed here in a women's and gender studies community, it was a learning community with like 3 different women's and gender studies classes. I got the opportunity to learn so many new things, and it's only because of that I ended up doing a BA and doing an MA. And when I heard of the troubles the department was having, I was really upset. And so I'm just really grateful of the chance to be here, seeing so many students interested in doing gender studies. And I'm just really appreciative of the work Dr. Washburn has done. So what I would say is that to folks here who are interested in gender studies, I would say pursue it. Even if you're not interested particularly in the concentration, take the classes, talk to the professors, engage with people, because they will support you afterward. And if there's anybody here who wants to know a little bit more about like the transferring process or taking gender studies in the BA and MA level, I'm more than happy to talk to you. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Josette. I also want to invite up JC Amarini, who is currently a CUNY BA for Unique and Interdisciplinary Studies and waiting, fingers crossed, for graduate school.
Nervous. If I'm twitching, it's just because I have anxiety and a neurological disorder. I'm very grateful to be here today. I love Kingsborough. I loved Kingsborough while I was here. I made a lot of friends, students and faculty, among students and faculties, and it's just heartwarming to be here on a day of celebration. Even though, there's always, within the political sphere, there's always something at the edge that you have to worry about, I guess. So I just want to say a few words. Women's and gender studies matters. Critical race studies matters. Disability studies matters. Area studies matter. If they didn't matter, there wouldn't be such widespread and intensive attempts to discredit and thereby delegitimize these research areas. We can see the discourse happening. We can see the repeated attempts to devalue decades of work that has helped bring the most marginalized into the center, that has helped reveal the varied ways and mediums through which power operates and actively creates our world. We can see the writing on the wall. And as long as we see that writing, those very walls, which function as bastions for the basic, the boring, the counter-revolutionary, we must resist. WGS is ultimately about bringing us all together by centering difference. So we need less walls and more understanding and mutual appreciation. The future will be born in difference. Dare I say it, the future will be different. WGS, all area studies are crucial to making that future a reality. Thank you.
Thank you, JC. I want to invite up Nina Theodore next.
Okay, so Red told me to say a few words, but I got many words, so I'll try to say it quick. Okay. So when I returned to college, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do professionally. With KCC advisors pressing me to choose a concentration, I decided on fine arts and film and society since I had prior experience in the field. I registered for the intro courses along with a couple others that piqued my interests, which were sexuality and culture and women in the social sciences. It did not take me long to regret the film courses and wish that I could have just replaced them with more WGS courses. The following semester, I took a couple more women's study courses, sexuality and literature, and a cross-discipline sociology course. Simply put, those courses gave me all the life. They were incredibly provoking, intellectually stimulating, and taught by undoubtedly impassioned professors. Once again, I found myself taken aback for so many reasons. Not only were the courses exciting, but they were taught from an unprecedented angle. WGS professors didn't talk at us, but rather talked to us, engaging us in discourse, which in turn made us active participants in developing theory. They provided us with a critical lens to not only analyze our course readings, but our lives within society. They encouraged us to engage our own lived experiences to bolster our findings. This was something I had not experienced in other disciplines I'd explored. This approach, however, appeared to be a fundament of the Women's Studies department. Sorry. This approach, however, appeared to be a fundament of Women's Studies department, or more so, that the discipline somewhat depends on such a type of engagement, which in so many ways is a gift to students, particularly in the way that it frees our minds from societal confines while asking us to see and embrace the world within and outside of our immediate reality. This sort of engagement with the world is incredibly liberating and empowering, one that allows us students to find our voices as intellects in the collegiate sense, as well as in society and life. So that's what happened to me. Those 4 or 5 courses helped me to realize my passions and steered me in the direction of my driving purpose. As a non-traditional student, I knew that I would be intentional with my academic choices and follow only what inspired me. WGS inspired me. It rekindled a small fire within me that was close to being extinguished. Had I not taken those courses, I would have surely latched onto some other traditional discipline, most likely poli-sci, where I'm almost certain that I would have been totally frustrated with the expectation of navigating and adopting traditional conservative schools of thought, most often developed by white cis males of a flawed epoch. Theories that often don't reflect my values or intersecting identities as a Black queer woman of West Indian descent. Theories that instead would isolate me, all while asking me to appropriate to them. But this I did not have to do. With women's studies, I did not have to live within the confines of a particular way of thinking handed down by social figures that made distorted deliberations about women and non-whites. With women's studies, I was encouraged to challenge the flaws of modern thought and allowed to negotiate who and what would influence my intellect. While at KCC, I concentrated in women's studies, was the president of the Women's Studies Club and a member of the Women's Studies Advisory Board. After KCC, I enrolled into Columbia University on a full academic scholarship and completed my BA program. And completed my BA program in May 2017 with magna cum laude distinction in African American Studies with a special concentration in women's gender and sexuality studies. I can promise you that without the knowledge I gained within women's studies, I would have never thought it possible to enter into that institution. I wouldn't have, because I didn't see myself as someone that fell within the archetype of the Ivy League. And I can promise you I would not have survived that institution without the Black Studies and Women, Gender, and Sexuality study departments there. In fact, I likely would be lost in everyday life when my identities and experiences get challenged every single day, if it were not for the validation and the visibility that women's and gender studies gave me. Today, I'm seeking to become a published author, as well as pursue a degree in law with an intent to work in public social policy and impact the lives of underrepresented groups that are intersectionally disadvantaged on the day-to-day. Before I take any more of your time, I would just like to quickly thank a few of the women's and gender studies professors that impacted my academic and professional trajectory at Kingsborough and thereafter. Dr. Red Washburn has been instrumental in helping me recognize my writing voice and that it was a voice that was important and necessary to be heard. They inspired me to be grounded in my ideas. They supported me here and throughout all my subsequent endeavors, and has been an incredibly inspiring example of someone who will fight to navigate life true to themselves and carve that path out for others. Professor Valle, with whom I took my first Women's and Gender Studies course, to which introduced me to Black feminist thought, my backpack guide to survival. Dr. Lafont, who patiently challenged us and taught us toleration and respect for the unknown and misunderstood. Professor Perea for her fierce radicalisms that echoed off her person and touched me to my very core. And thank you to the Women's and Gender Studies departments across the board for existing, for being home, for being the foundation of my Black feminist principles, for encouraging me to challenge the flaws of modern thought, and for helping me realize that I can negotiate who and will influence me. Thank you for validating my experience. Thank you for protecting me, for providing a shield to the bigotry. Thank you for recentering Black bodies, Indigenous bodies, and queer bodies in academic discourse, for creating space to keep them visible, for seeing them, and for seeing me.
Thank you, Nina. And I just want to say that Nina also studied with Kim Crenshaw at Columbia, so it's truly an honor to have Nina represent the program, also an amazing writer. I also want to invite up Nehal Nasser, and I have one other speaker, and then I promise I'm just going to do a shout out, and then there's t-shirts and cakes. I really do think we should have a party. But I want to invite up two other people. So Nehal, if you'd like to come up. And Nehal is this close to a PhD program. I already got accepted into Rutgers. And what was the other one? Rutgers and the Grad Center waiting on NYU.
Yeah, so I really don't want to follow that. Like, you just kind of, it was literally explosive. First off, thank you so much, Dr. Washburn, for having me back here. No, she's fine. She'll just stand there awkwardly. This is my daughter, Nusaiba. She's been coming to Kingsborough with me since I started here. Yeah, so I'm so happy to be back here. Those of you who know me even a little bit know how much this place means to me and how transformative my experience at Kingsborough has been. I mean, for my sort of path to like academia has not been traditional. Out of high school, I was a student at City Tech for about a year, and it was not a good fit for me. I finally left after being put on academic probation with a GPA of 0.68. So I didn't even have a 1 to my name. It was just not a good fit for me. And fast forward 10 or so years later, I found my life had completely imploded in every way possible. I was a single mother, no college degree, no work experience, and I ended up at Kingsborough in March of 2016. 1 year later, I graduated with the highest of honors with a GPA of 3.9. Like, what even is that? How did that happen? I don't know, but I'm so thankful. My experience here was so full and so incredible, and I owe it, the two main forces that guided me through this process was the Women and Gender Studies program and the honors program. I could not have been where I am now without these two incredible bodies of support and encouragement who pushed me on days that I didn't even believe in myself. So currently I'm at City College, finishing up my BA in International Studies with a minor of Women and Gender Studies. I am very lucky to have been granted acceptance into 2 PhD programs, waiting on the 3rd, fingers crossed, and working on my first book, sort of a personal narrative, and just thriving and so happy. And this is just the example of what Women and Gender Studies has done for me. And I'm one person, but I think if we look around, we'll see that we live in a very racist, capitalist, white supremacist, homophobic, Islamophobic, xenophobic society that has made its way into every institution that shapes our lives and made it so that we see the world in a very specific way, and that way is to serve that racist, sexist, classist, capitalist society. Women's and gender studies, more than any other discipline I've studied, has served to sort of pull the wool from my eyes and make it easy to see that society for what it is and to challenge those intersecting systems of oppression. And I think now more than anything, I don't know about you guys, but the current climate that we live in, we need this information and we need to be able to stand up and challenge these systems more than ever. So I was heartbroken to hear about the rocky situation that was happening with the program, but I'm so glad to see that the faculty and the students and everyone is powering through, and I'm glad to see the work is continuing, and I hope it continues for many, 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 many moons, and I hope to be a part of it maybe when I finish my PhD one day. Hint, hint, hiring committee people. I'm kidding. No, I'm not kidding. But anyway, thank you again so much.
Thank you, Nehal. Okay, last but not least, we have Iman Derek, who is a current student. There are also a number of current students. Hang around, and after this, we'll get started.
Wow, you guys are all so good. I'm so nervous now, but yeah. I actually, my last semester finished in February, so I'm going to graduate in June this year. I guess I have a little bit of a different perspective because I'm actually not a liberal arts student. I'm a tourism and hospitality student, so wow, what am I doing up here? But in my first semester, I ended up in a community class. I think somebody else here did it, which was like Professor Red, Dahlia, and then I had like another class, I don't know. But when I did that class, it just like ignited something in me. And I decided that every other class that I had, I kind of wanted it to be focused in women and gender studies. So I did my tourism classes and all the other classes I had, like sociology, anthropology. I tried to like find it in that kind of path. So I kind of ended up with a concentration. And it's been kind of the best decision. I also ended up being the president of the Women and Gender Studies Club. And we hosted some really great events and panels, and I'm really proud of the time that I've had here at Kingsborough. As you can hear, I'm really nervous. But, you know, women and gender studies honestly made my experience at Kingsborough, like it was the best part of the entire thing. And I would not change anything about it for the world. I found a great community of friends and mentors and people that just really had my back, and really we could connect on such a different level. When I was planning on going to Kingsborough, I just wanted to go to school and like go home. Like I wasn't planning on being so involved, but I really have to thank that first Women and Gender Studies class. It really pulled me in and really wanted me to explore something that was not even on my mind. So thank you, Red. Thank you, Dahlia, Katya, all of my professors that have made my time here amazing. So.
Thank you all for being here. It's really wonderful to hear your voices and to have you back on the campus. I just want to thank everyone again for coming. I want to thank the Women's Center, Women, Gender, and Sexuality Studies Club, the Student Union Intercultural Center, the Diversity Symposium, the Sanctuary Committee, and everyone who's helped to make this event possible. I also just want to say a couple of names, and I know a lot of folks have left, but we have t-shirts and cakes, so hopefully you'll hang around. So I want to thank the core Women and Gender Studies faculty here: Maria Bartolomeo, Allison Better, Michelle Billies, Leslie Broder, Elizabeth Dill, Kavisha Eccles, Maureen Fadum, Maria Hernandez, Amy Karp, Lisa Pilar, Katya Perea, Katarina Pierre, Camille Posey, Deborah Schultz, Lily Shee, Tracy Steffi, Sherry Weinstein, Dominic Wetzel, among others. I also have certificates for everyone too, but I'm not going to have time to do all this. I want to thank retired faculty and staff, Nenny Weiner, Susan Farrell, Fran Kraljic, and Ines Martinez, Dahlia Valle, Suzanne Lafont, Lourdes Dolores Follins, Estelle Miller, Susan O'Malley, Bonnie August, Nora Chase, Pat Hopkins, Betty Corelli. Students: Josette Belmont, Nehal Nasser, Khalil Mason Alfonso, Nina Theodore, JC Amarini, Iman Derek, Molly Pierce, Tanya Rodriguez, Danny Basav, Shay Berger, Isabel Rivera, Charlie Quiones, Alyssa Fulton, Elizabeth Smith, Selena Dua, Martin Say, Ashley Teasdale, Crystal Turner, Stephanie Pinea, Rosie Fernandez, Beverly Jagger, Amanda Pagan, Maria Edgy Cedeno, Kiara Clark Knight, Juliette Wilson-Dixon, Kyle Reese, Shaniqua Turner, Carlos Pena, Tiara Townsley, and a number of others. I also want to thank Student Life, Maria Pateas, Raquel Torres, Lauren Ferguson, and Jad Dalazil, and folks from the administration, Dean Leaker, Dean Warren Cook. Amanda Kalin, and Janine Paladin. And there are a number of others. I'll put them on the screen. I'm exhausted. But anyway, I want to thank everyone for coming. I want to thank everyone from across the campuses. There's cake, there's shirts, have fun.
Thank you. Hey, Princess, teacher.